Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. The tasks of a missionary haven't changed much over the centuries: to serve the sacraments, and yet at the same time to be an architect, a builder, a counselor, and a teacher. To tell us more about what it means to be a missionary today, it is my very great privilege to welcome Father Guillermo Basañes, the General Counselor of the Salesian Missionaries, working in over 130 countries around the world. Welcome, Father, and thank you for being with us here today in our program.
Thank you very much for this invitation.
Father Guillermo, can you tell us, what would you say was the most beautiful or most extraordinary experience that touched you during your missionary life?
Well, in my missionary life in Angola, I have been very much linked to the formation of young seminarians. No? That is interesting because I went to Africa as a seminarian, and then I have spent most of my time accompanying African young candidates, especially to Salesian life, but also other congregations. No? And I think one of the most beautiful things is to see the cultural barriers. I would say somehow they disappear, no? When we are working together with the same faith and with the same project, no? I tell you, I have been able to be very close to young seminarians and accompanying them as my own son, I would say, no? And in those moments you understand that there is not this huge cultural barrier sometimes we speak about, no? When the gospel is within, when we have the same faith, when we have the same project, even understanding that you and me, we are so different, no? But we can be so brotherly and fatherly linked, no? Even if the cultural differences are so big, no? I experienced it especially from the charism of Don Bosco, no? Yeah, Don Bosco, the father of the youth, the friend of the youth, no? I would say how easy was with Don Bosco to become friend of young people, no? And you would say, but your parents and my parents are so different. Your language and my language are so different, no? Our backgrounds are so different, but we can be so deeply linked, no? And I think that this one has been one of the most beautiful experiences that I experienced and I'm still experiencing. That is the enculturation of the gospel and of the different charisms, no? How is it possible to really become fully Angolan, African, Salesian, or fully Christian Catholic from Africa, in Africa, no? And that is, I think, a beautiful discovery and consolation also, yes, for the heart of a missionary. No?
You are now the General Counselor of the Salesian Missions worldwide.
For just some months. Last March was our general chapter, and I have just been appointed for this new job. No?
So this new responsibility, which must weigh heavily, 130 countries. How do you apply what you have learned, how you have changed through your experience? How do you apply this now in a worldwide vision?
Yeah, the point is, first of all, from our Don Bosco's point of view or Salesian point of view, to make especially my converts understand and live deeply the missionary spirit of our founder, no? And that is the key issue. Today, when we talk about missions, we are not closed in a particular geographical area, no? I would say for many years, some decades now, when we used to talk about missionaries and missions, we used to think about the forest, these old people with white beard being in the canoes and with, okay, we are still there, no? And we have to be there, no? I have just been, for example, in the prelature of Oaxaca in Mexico, no? And seeing my converts working very close to indigenous communities, the same in Amazonia and in other places.
And in this part of the world, it's still the same image of what we have. No?
We are present, very proud, and we believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ has to be present there, and Don Bosco has to be present there. But the point today is not where are your missions. The point is, where are not missions. No? Yeah. When people see me, they say, Father, you came to visit those areas. It's interesting, one of our last missions that we have opened as Salesian of Don Bosco is in Amsterdam. Yeah, one of our last missions, first frontier of missions. That means a huge number of immigrants, young generations with an enormous ignorance of religion, of the gospel of Jesus Christ. No? So we have just opened last year a new community. We have never opened a community in Amsterdam, and that is missions also for us. So
is this the new frontier? I mean,
it is
Europe.
Yeah, it is
the heart.
As I was saying to you before, in the 80s, 90s, the Salesian congregation, we launched a very providential project that was called Project Africa. In 20 years, we have passed from 300, 200 Salesians to 1,500 Salesians today. Most of them converts and Salesians from Africa. That was Project Africa. From all the congregation, we focused in one continent, and it was really providential and wonderful. No? In these last 10 years, and following especially the exhortation of Pope Benedict, who asked Salesians not to abandon the youth in Europe, we have launched in 2008 a Project Europe, which evidently is a project, but has nothing to do with Africa project. In Africa, everything was being started.
Primary evangelization.
Yeah, primary evangelization. In Europe, we still have new frontiers of new generation of young people who are also in primary evangelization. No? But here it is to revive.
But it's almost more difficult because the culture was Christian and has rejected Christianity, whereas in Africa there was no rejection.
It is.
So in some way, the challenge coming back to Europe, which I find fascinating as a mission work, you have a double challenge, and that is, as you say, primary evangelization, the education, but at the same time overcoming this radical secularization and rejection of faith and rejection of church. How do you manage that one? How do you overcome this?
Yeah, so that is what we have launched, and the President General Superior launched this Europe project. No? Just to tell you, in the last 6-7 years, around 60 Salesians from Africa, Asia and Latin America have come to Europe, no? And are working. But the idea that was not so easy is that they are not just coming to take the place of all converts who are dying. They are coming because there is a new mission that is being born. No? And so in this moment, evidently, we are studying, we are discerning which are the best ways to do it. No? Because as you know better than me, the issue of migration here in Europe is so huge. In many places, we have European converts who have to compulsory learn Asiatic or African language in order to fulfill their mission at home. And so this is an adjunctus mission at home. No? But for this closeness and this understanding of migrants, particularly young migrants, we need international communities. It's not that we need Filipinos to take care of Filipinos and so on. We need international communities where universality is lived in order to help the more and more universal community that is growing up in Europe.
And in Europe, when we talk about evangelization, when we talk about mission, is it still one-to-one, person-to-person, or are you also using the tools that are available to you through social media, through
also
all of these questions, or at the end of the day, is it really the person-to-person that will touch the heart?
Yeah, with Don Bosco, we have learned to do all those things at the same time. No? Our advantage, I would say, from Don Bosco is that we focus immediately the youth. No? What are the young people needing today in Europe? No? And one of the first things young people are needing here in Europe, from Europe and not from Europe, is sense of life. Yeah, so this is
There's a loss of a sense
to offer Jesus Christ as the one who gives sense to our lives, no? But then there is a huge issue of unemployment and vocational training, and for the migrants, for example, to help them to learn the European languages. And so the possibilities that we are offering are so many according to the needs, no? But in our case, when we talk about Project Europe from Don Bosco, it means to focus mainly and first of all the young people, no?
I want to go back, Project Africa. You were 16 years in Africa, in Angola principally, and we have a short report on one of your confreres, Father Julio, working with street children. He's a good friend of yours. How did you meet him, and what was the context in which your friendship grew?
As you are going to see, he's much older than me. He's also from Argentina. He has a very interesting, I would say, missionary journey, because he was in Argentina, then he went to Peru, and then he went to Angola. No? He has been always a very courageous Salesian, full of life, full of enthusiasm, as you are going to see. And I appreciate him. I would say we reached Angola more or less at the same time. Yeah, but he was already a priest. I was yet a seminarian as a Salesian, and he has always been a very, very dynamic and very attracting Salesian.
Father Guillermo, we're going to watch now a short report on the story of Father Julio working with street children in the capital of Angola, Luanda.
Hey, brother. Sorry for interrupting your game.
Father Julio.
Hey, top scorer. You were the goalie? This home, the Casa Magone, where we live, is a home for 45 to 50 people, where we offer education in literacy, primary education, as well as courses in electronics, refrigeration and spooling coils, as well as computing. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I ran away from my father's home because he bullied me. He mistreated me. I ran away from my home because my stepmother beat me very badly. I didn't like the noise, the result of my mother's drinking habit. She would often have rows with my grandmother. Nobody could stand it. One could not sleep. They would quarrel ceaselessly. My mother hit me a lot and didn't give me anything to eat. I robbed her, ran away, and later went to the island. I left my house because I was accused of being a witch. When my mother died, I was left with my uncles and grandmother. They later dubbed me a witch. My parents hit me, which is why I decided to run away onto the streets. My mother abandoned us, which is how I ended up on the streets. I began sleeping on the streets, and then later in some home. My father never looked after me. When he returned home drunk, he wouldn't even let me eat supper. He preferred to beat me, even unconscious.
Violence is ever present in our district at all times of the day. We have had 6-7 years of peace, but social peace is ever lacking. Everyone is armed with hand and machine guns. Young people who walk the streets shoot at night so that one has to hide or simply stay home. This aggression and violence is the consequence of the times we are living in. No one is in control. Nobody has been disarmed. The government gave out these weapons and now finds it difficult to take them back. They traded arms, even the police do it. They confiscate them here and sell them to others. Violence is particularly prevalent in 2 districts, Kazenga and Sambizanga, where we are now.
Venga en su puta, venga en su puta, venga en su puta. Vámonos.
Nós já não fazemos o trabalho de ir na rua.
We no longer have to go out on the streets in search of children.
Os mesmos
The boys create their own publicity. Look, we're going to the Magone home, where we eat, study, and so step by step they come to us. Of course, some return to the streets, but I believe that 90% of those who come here stay, and with time achieve successes that are important to them. We watch boys who were advanced drug addicts who drank heavily and see how they change. For example, I was very surprised today to see kids I hadn't yet reached already organizing themselves. This group here, the others over there, we go to study. I saw boy soldiers on both sides. They were called rusgas, groups of children taken by soldiers or guerrillas. 8 to 10-year-old children. There were many. They carried weapons and other materials. The situation changed their mindset totally. Violence takes over a human being very quickly. It is very easy to brainwash a child. Far more difficult to clean it, pull him out of a violent mindset. It's as if these children were condemned to kill. And to make it worse, the child thinks he's doing good.
God, I'm stoned. What's going on? I'm always here. They know me. I'm always here. They are my friends. I grew up with them. We ate together, studied, and played. So now we are here, friends forever. That I have survived to this age is, my friend, purely thanks to God. Yes, thanks to God. We need your help. One more chance.
A Salesian cannot rest so long as there are young people who lead lives guided by values other than those of the gospel. My dream is exactly that, to redeem these young people, give them a profession, create a place for them to spend their free time where they can meet, to go out to them on the streets, into blind alleys, and give them a helping hand, so that they do not go off track. To be here, that is my dream. Be here to tell these young people, which one of you will take up the challenge to live with Christ? As our unforgettable John Paul II used to say, Christ takes nothing away. He gives you everything. There will always be a street, there will always be a child, and that child will ask us with his gaze, what have you done to get me out from here? And so I will always walk the streets.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our program Where God Weeps. It's my privilege to be speaking with Father Guillermo Basañes, the General Counselor for the Salesian Missionaries in over 130 countries around the world. Father Guillermo, you were a close friend of Father Julio. Was there one thing that you learned from him, that you took away from your experience with him, with working with the street children, that you can also apply to your work, your mission today as a general counselor?
Yeah, many things. I would say his love for the poor. Yeah, I think that when these days we are listening Pope Francis speaking about how to love the poor, it is exactly what we have just seen about Father Julio. No? It is not, I would say, something formal or something just exterior. With Father Julio, I have learned that loving the poor ones is not just a speech for us, but it means a real friendship and closeness. No? And then another thing I have learned from him, this commitment. No? Yeah, ready to offer his life at any moment. No? I remember once when we were together in Dondo, in Kwanza Norte, he got a strong malaria and sisters were taking care of him, and he was in the bed with a perfusion. No? But he knew that he had an issue with a catechist, that he had to go to a village, and he was with his perfusion. And so he came out of the corridor and he said, "Is sister still around?" "No." She's gone. Okay. She got the perfusion. He got into the car. He hung the perfusion in the window and went with the car because he had to meet that catechist. Okay, it's a crazy man, no? But this is the sign of commitment, giving his life fully for those to whom he has been sent. No?
I remember him once saying, there are three kinds of persons you'll meet in these areas of difficulty, in the areas of challenge in the world. One is the missionaries, one is the medical, and one is the military. And so for him, the military and the missionaries and the medical, that's their work.
Yeah, it's a beautiful witnessing. No? And what is interesting in this sort of missionaries is that people, they understand immediately which is the nature of a priest, of a missionary, no? Who are the good ones and who are the not good ones, or those who are not as so much committed. And Pope Francis, he is insisting also in this issue, no? That the sheep, they know how to recognize their shepherd, no? And Father Julio, for example, he's not highly experienced, for example, in local languages, no? But there you understand, no? That there is something beyond, no? That is what you communicate by your attitudes. That's why I say his closeness to the poor, his full commitment, no? Even
that the shepherd is ready to lay down his life.
Exactly. You see it, yes. No? And people, they understand it immediately. You don't speak perfectly our language, but we understand your heart. And it is in that moment that the missionary message goes deep to the heart of people, of cultures. No?
Father, what can we do for missionaries to help the missions? How can we help?
Well, I think that one important thing is this, I would say, first of all, this is spiritual communion. No? I'm talking to you and people are listening to things, and I understand that immediately some fire is put on in all our hearts. No? And I think this is the first thing, no? Our spiritual communion, no? Mainly through prayers. No? It is very nice in Redemptoris Missio when St. John Paul II he insists, no? The prayers of the sick, the prayers of the elderly. These last weeks I have been going to many of our nurseries, especially here in Europe. We have communities of old converts in their 80s, in their 90s, even old missionaries. And I used to say to them, no one is parked. There is not a garage in this congregation. No? You are still in the front line. And which is your front line? Prayers. Yeah. It's nice to listen to an old missionary ill in his 90s and saying to you, I'm feeling that now I'm saving more souls than the whole work I have done during my full missionary life. And it is not just a pious feeling, it is truth. He is saving more souls through prayers and through sacrifice. So I think this is the first call. No? Whenever we have someone ill, whenever we have someone who is in the bed, young or old, no? Let us tell them and help them to be in communion with all the missionaries and to pray for missionaries. No? Something more visible and more practical, I would say, is the formation of young seminarians. As I was saying to you, most of my years in Africa, I would say my youngest years in Africa, I spent in formation in the seminary. It is the costs of formation for most of the vocations in Africa and in Asia are so huge. I was in one provincial chapter in Nigeria, and there was the idea of limiting the number of vocations because there is no money to feed them. And there's not only an issue of religious people, also in the diocesan seminarians. In some diocesan seminaries, they put a limit to number because there is not money to feed them. No?
And you risk losing the vocation.
And then, for example, in Africa, we cannot have seminaries everywhere. So you have to travel. Passports, visas, and traveling in Africa, prices are crazy. No? So you cannot have a seminary in each one of the 40, 50 countries in Africa. The same issue in Asia. So the cost to form a missionary is very high. So I think this is one of the most precious help that can be offered. No? To build schools, cars, ways, hospitals, many other people and institutions and international communities are very sensitive. When you say, I want to form a seminarian, I want to form a missionary, generosity is less. So I would put this one in number one. No? Formation of young vocations in Latin America, in Africa, and in Asia.
Father Guillermo, thank you very much for having been with us today on our program.
Thank you, and pray for me. As Pope Francis used to say, I also say, pray for me.
I will. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program. You've heard the stories of Father Guillermo. You've heard the witness, the need to support our seminarians through prayer and concrete action. Otherwise, we risk losing these vocations. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Where God Weeps.